telecom audit initiated by URA has exceeded the expected contract period, and this affects reporting and recovery of revenue in the undeclared taxes. There is no proof that URA has renegotiated the contract terms to ensure that work is expedited within the new alluded to timelines. The contract expired. None of the processes has been concluded, considering that reconciliation between URA and MTN is still ongoing. With the recent period left with 1.5 months to end, only 3 of the 15 URA staff have been involved in the MTN audit, leaving no possibility for the scaling of the remaining 12 in the short period. Recommendations. That the accounting officer should engage contractor to provide a detailed projection on when the project is expected to end and iron out any bottlenecks hindering the realization of the project. In particular, URA should renegotiate the timelines within which to execute the contract with specific outputs and associated timelines. Compliance with relevant regulatory framework on procurement management. Right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, multi-year commitments without parliamentary approval. Section 22(1) of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 171, states that a vote shall not enter into a contract, transaction, or agreement that binds the government to financial commitment for more than 1 financial year, or which results in a contingent liability, except where the financial commitment or contingent liability is authorized by Parliament. Contrary to the above, it was observed that the authority awarded multi-year contracts amounting to 53.9 billion without evidence of approval by Parliament. The Auditor General observed that failure to obtain parliamentary approval for these multi-year commitments is irregular and defeats the purpose of the Public Finance Management Act in ensuring proper public financial management and discipline. In response, the accounting officer informed the committee that URA submitted her multi-year commitments for the financial year 24-25 to the Minister of Finance, see Annex 4.6a, later to PSST requests for confirmation of multi-year commitments for financial year 24-25, and Annex B 4.6b list of procurements forming multi-year commitments. 4.6c later to Minister of Finance seeking parliamentary approval of multi-year commitments for financial year 24-25 and going forward. Management further explained that approval was obtained from the Permanent Secretary to the Treasury, PSST. Committee observes, whereas it is within the ambit of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to approve commitments from URA and other agencies of government, the final approval for expenditure lies with Parliament, Section 13(1) of the PFMA. Therefore, continuing to approve multi-year commitments without parliamentary approval is a breach of Section 22(1) of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 171. The committee notes, however, that where Parliament approves the entity's budget and work plan for the financial year under review, it is deemed to have approved. It is apparent that since the entity is allowed to retain some funds, it could have resorted to the same funds, which still would be use of funds without appropriation, contrary to the law. The committee was not presented with the ministerial approval for the multi-year commitment, although the accounting office explained that permission was obtained from the PSST. Authority from Parliament was not obtained as required under Section 22 of the PFMA. In the absence of such authority, it is not clear where the entity got the money to execute the multi-year commitment. It is the duty of Minister of Finance to ensure, upon request, that the necessary parliamentary approval is obtained before entry into any execution of multi-year contracts. The committee recommends that the accounting officer should always ensure parliamentary approval is obtained for a multi-year contract to ensure compliance with the law. Performance evaluation. Review of the implementation of the entity's mandate. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee went through the entire record and finding of the Auditor General, and from page 19 through to page 22, and came up with the recommendations thereon, and then the review of the implementation of the approved budget at page 23 is canvassed through to page 26. Management explained that recruitment of 1,200 staff is in the final stages. Written assessments were completed on January 12, 2025. Oral interviews commenced on February 17th to 28th of 2025, and appointments will be effective March 2020, March 2025. The procurement of 250 computers was also completed on October 11th, 2024, with the supply of laptops. Procurement of workstations and other furniture was also completed in August 2024. The progress of the procurement for the construction of Mbale office was at bid evaluation stage. The committee observes that failure to utilize all the allocated funds locks up resources for service delivery in other areas. The presence of inherent structural and operational bottlenecks encountered by URA in the implementation of planned activities affect optimal budget absorption. Recommendations. The accounting officer should see to it that all warranted funds are utilized to ensure timely implementation of the planned activities. All structural and operational bottlenecks encountered by URA in the implementation of planned activities should be assessed and eliminated to achieve optimal budget absorption. We make an analysis on implementation of unfunded activities, Right Honourable Speaker, at pages 28, 29, through to page 31, and make recommendations, make observations at page, make observations at page 30 to 31. Not all warranted funds were fully utilized on the planned activities. There continues to exist structural and operational bottlenecks that impede the implementation of URA's full mandate, and these include but are not limited to persistent strikes by taxpayers. Recommendation. Accounting officers should see to it that all unwarranted funds are utilized to ensure timely implementation of the planned activities. All structural and operational bottlenecks encountered by URA in the implementation of planned activities should be assessed and eliminated to achieve optimal budget absorption. Tax education should be enhanced and government intervention expedited to facilitate the entity in executing its mandate. Right Honourable Speaker, those are the salient features in the audit in respect of Uganda Revenue Authority corporate services.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, that is, yes, corporate services. Also, for the Hansard and for Secretariat, permit me, Right Honourable Speaker, to table the original report of the Auditor General of our report on the revenue collection account of URA. With your permission, I would like to lay on table, but also yes, provide a copy to the Speaker. This report equally, Right Honourable Speaker, raises salient issues that requires the attention of the House. I do not intend to go through the preliminary pages as well, or chapters, but take you straight Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, to page 6 on revenue collection trend, and the trend is analyzed at page 6 through to page 7. The authority's actual gross revenue was Uganda shillings 27.938694 trillion compared to 25.751721 trillion for the financial year 22-23, and the performance represents a revenue growth of 8.5%. However, the above performance resulted in a revenue shortfall of 1.917470 trillion as analyzed in Table 2. The Auditor General noted that failure to attain the set revenue targets affects the overall revenue performance and cash flow performance of the government. The Accounting Office of Management responded that the shortfall of the 2.101522 trillion reported by the Auditor General, he noted it. However, on reconciliation, confirmed that the shortfall was actually as reported. A number of initiatives to enhance revenue collection are being undertaken, and that they include the following: enhanced compliance initiatives, which focused on field inspections, return vetting, alternative dispute resolution to free revenues tied up in disputes, and improved arrears management. There are also ongoing taxpayer engagements coupled with intensified enforcement actions targeting non-compliant taxpayers, opening up new stations in areas where we have had limited visibility, like Gayaza, Boyale, Kayunga. I think those ones are now put on notice. Engaging with the key sector stakeholders, including sugar manufacturers, distilleries, telecoms, and others, to discuss and improve their compliance. Reorganizing the large taxpayer office, public sector office, and medium taxpayers office to implement the sector-based approach for enhanced specialized compliance management. 6, utilizing data from external sources to bolster compliance efforts, such as the use of NSSF data and payee reviews and data on expatriates applying for work permits to assist in payee enhancement. 7, as a result of the action taken in the first 6 months of financial year 24-25, URA has collected 15.248.99 billion, that's 15 trillion, against a target of Uganda shillings 14.926.85 billion, representing a performance of 102.16%. This is a surplus of Uganda shillings 322.14 billion. Growth of 16.
Honorable, just a minute before these children go. Sorry about that. In the public gallery, we have pupils and teachers from Hill Primary School, from Kapchora. Are you the ones? Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. They are represented by Honorable Cheptoris and Honorable Chemutai Phyllis. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah? Thank you.
I join you, Right Honorable, in welcoming our children. The committee observes, representing a performance of 102.16%. This is a surplus of 322.14 billion, a growth of 16.8%, which is 2.112.25 billion. That is 2 trillion realized compared to the same period in the last financial year. Committee observes that the achievement of the revenue targets by the tax body is key in stabilizing the cash flow of government, and therefore any shortfalls created in revenue affects implementation of planned activities, hence poor service delivery. We recommend that 1, management should enhance initiatives to grow revenue collections and meet the set revenue targets. 2, the accounting officer should develop short, medium, and long-term strategies to curb revenue shortfalls. Unpaid tax arrears due to government commitments. The Auditor General noted that as of June 2024, unpaid taxes relating to government-related tax waivers amounted to 713.471 billion as reflected in Schedule 4 to the financial statements. This was a result of tax waivers for several entities on the presumption that the taxes would be cleared by the responsible entities, which include Ministry of Finance, UNRA, Ministry of Education and Sports, and Ministry of Energy, among others. However, management explained that URA engaged Ministry of Finance and that a joint team of URA and Ministry of Finance reconciled the stock of arrears under government commitment. As a result, government commitments totaling to Uganda shillings 713.471,258,868 were paid for financial year 23-24 as at January 31st, 2024. See Annex Chair 4.12A as proof of payment of arrears. Committee observed that failure by the respective government agencies to pay the required arrears affects the revenue collection targets of the Uganda Revenue Authority. 2. Whereas URA indicated that by 31st January 24, the unpaid taxes relating to government-related waivers were paid, audit findings as of June 2024 state otherwise. Indeed, the committee was not given proof of payment of the said taxes. Further, explanation was not provided as to why reconciliations were not done by the time of the audit. Unguided tax waivers affect revenue collection targets and cripple the country's development trajectory. We recommend, therefore, as follows. The accounting officer should continually engage Ministry of Finance and other responsible entities to ensure that taxes are timely cleared. The respective accounting officers should prioritize timely settlement of tax arrears owed to Uganda Revenue Authority. Government should review its tax waiver policy, which cripple the ability of URA to achieve its revenue collection targets. Manual management of custom agents' appeals. Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, the Auditor General noted that Section 231 and 2 of the East African Community Customs Management Act, (YACMA) 2004, states as follows. A person dissatisfied with the decision of the Commissioner under Section 229 may appeal to the Tax Appeals Tribunal established in accordance with Section 231. A person intending to lodge an appeal under the section shall act within 45 days after being served with the decision and shall serve a copy of the appeal to the Commissioner. Further, the Auditor General noted that appeals are received by the Commissioner of Customs on the 1st of January as soon as licenses are issued and throughout the year licensing period. In respect of the foregoing, the Auditor General noted the following. There is no formal format that details a log of appeal cases. The Customs Department uses Microsoft Excel spreadsheet as an appeals register report, where cases are classified in accordance with the reasons for the appeal. The applicant writes a letter to the Commissioner of Customs Department with reasons for the appeal. The Appeals Committee is then appointed by the Commissioner to generate recommendations to guide the appeals resolution. There are no timelines on when the appeal should be resolved. Management explained that the application and issuance process for licensing through an automated, is still undergoing modifications to improve the efficiency of the system, and this has been done in phases. Management further indicated that appeal processes will thereafter be considered for automation. Management informed the committee that the automation of the customs agents' appeals is enshrined in the General Customs Appeals and Objection Module, whose user specification document was prepared and currently in the queue for software development in line with Section 229 of the East African Community Customs Management Act. The procedure for the management of customs clearing agents appeals. Committee observes that failure to automate and lack of a clear timeline to resolve the appeals leads to case backlog. Furthermore, manual processes are prone to human abuse, presenting an avenue for process abuse. Recommendations. The accounting officer should consider fully automating the appeals process. The management should develop clear appeals guidelines for timely management and resolution of appeals. Unsupported change of motor vehicle values / particulars in different clearance regimes. Right Honorable Speaker, this was raised as a significant query, and the committee made observations at page 13. Maybe to explain it a bit, there are 3 stages as raised by the Auditor General. That 1, 603 instances where the motor vehicles having varying information at between IM7 and between IM4 and IM7, pardon me. Of these, 27 vehicles had the years of manufacture changed. 4 motor vehicles had their condition changed from used in IM7 to new in IM4. 568 had a change in the price at the 2 different levels of clearance. 3 vehicles had their chassis numbers changed at IM7, between IM7 and IM4. Importation of motor vehicles above 15 years of manufacture was also noticed. The accounting officer responded. For new vehicles, the figures are adjusted for insurance at the point of declaration for home consumption. The valuation of imported used motor vehicles follows the ESC administrative ruling dated 13th December 2013 that guided the use of fallback method and determining the value of such used vehicles by, among others, applying the depreciation principles. The change in CIF value for used motor vehicles arose from regular monthly review of used motor vehicle valuation database, where the value applied is the value applicable at the time of declaration for home consumption done in compliance with Section 2(2)(a) of the East African Customs Management Act 2004 as amended. Right Honorable Speaker, the 27 vehicles whose years of manufacture were changed. Change in motor vehicle conditions from used to new, and change in motor vehicle years of manufacture, as well as change in motor vehicle chassis, was a result of new information being obtained at the point of clearance for home consumption, and an inspection report was generated. Such new information is incorporated through amendment so that the motor vehicle is cleared and registered with appropriate correct particulars as per the attached Annexure 4.1.4c and the sample inspection report, Annex 4.1.4d. 3 vehicles had their chassis numbers changed at IM7 and IM4, and the 3 cases in change of chassis number have been reviewed and observed that there was no change in chassis numbers. Instead of the audit picked and compared the IM4 and deferred IM7, leading to the mismatch of information. Box 7 in the SAD is the agent reference number. The appropriate box for IM7 is box 40 of the SAD, which contains the same information as the IM4. Refer to Annex 4.1.4c. Importation of motor vehicles above 15 years of manufacture. The justification for each of the vehicles is provided in Annex 4.14c. These include vehicles that were cleared at warehouses as boarded off vehicles, and others that were within the timeline of the 15 years considering their year of manufacture and import year as seen in Annex 4.1.4c. No staff was found culpable as per the justifications provided. Management further indicated that URA had initiated an improvement in the clearance process to ensure that changes in the product and value for IM7 to IM4 are streamlined and that the system enhancement for the initiative is being considered. The observation of the committee. Changes in motor vehicle particulars result in revenue loss to the government through less tax being levied for the importers. These changes could also imply the possibility of importing unauthorized vehicles. We recommend, therefore, that 1. The accounting officer should enforce measures to ensure that customs standard operating procedures are adhered to, and 2. That the highlighted changes should be investigated by management and action taken on culpable staff. Potential revenue loss arising from misclassification of concentrates. Right, Honorable Speaker, the audit noted that according to the East African Community Customs Union Common External Tariff, Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, version 2022, the animal premix used in manufacture of animal and poultry feeds are coded under code 2309.90.10 and attract import duty at 0% per kilogram, while the other preparations of a kind used in animal feeding are coded under code 2309.90.90, attracting the import duty of 10% per kilogram. Generally, the premixes are used in small amounts in poultry to provide critical micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, or additives needed for optimal health and productivity, while animal concentrates focus on macronutrients, energy, and protein, and make up a significant part of the poultry diet. For the period under review, the Auditor General extracted data from the Ascuda customs system relating to preparations of a kind used in animal feeding and noted the following. A. 1,202 instances involving imported consignments being regarded as animal premix to be used in manufacture of animal and poultry feeds and coded under Customs Code 2309.90.10 and attracting import duty of 0% per kilogram, as opposed to being considered as a concentrate, or in brackets, other preparations of a kind used in animal feeding, coded under Customs Code 2309.90.90, which attracts an import duty of 10% per kilogram. The custom value of the concentrates being referred to as premixes was Uganda shillings 91.2 billion. In addition to the 12,002 consignments referred to as premix, 838 consignments are worth the customs value of 60.97 billion had been assessed the customs dues of 8.7 billion that were settled by respective importers. 372 importers were exempted from import duty and VAT on importation arising from the classification of animal concentrates as premixes. Management explained that a proposal was made to the ESC Sectoral Council on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment to provide clarity on harmonization of the provisions of the East African Common External Tariff but clarity has not been provided yet. Accordingly, this matter still on the agenda of the Sectoral Council on Trade, Industry, and Finance and Investment. The 45th SCTIFI referred the matter to be reviewed by the Technical Committee of Customs Experts. A copy of the SCTIFI report is attached and marked 4.1.5. The committee observes that the classification of animal concentrates as premixes had deprived the government of Uganda of revenue that could have been utilized to finance critical government interventions, and recommend as follows. The Commissioner General should continue engaging ES Sectoral Committee Council on Trade, Finance, Industry, Finance and Investment to streamline the classification of animal feeds to avert the potential revenue loss to government. The interchange of codes for inputs under question calls for thorough investigation of the customs staff to ascertain whether there was collusion to defraud government. URA should engage the Sectoral Council on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investments for an expeditious position on the matter. We conclude by recommending, Right Honourable Speaker, that you be pleased and colleagues to approve our recommendations. Right Honourable Speaker, the other entity where significant issues were raised by the Auditor General relates to the accounts of the Uganda National Airline Company Limited for the audit year ended December 2024. With your permission, I would like to lay on table the original report for the Secretariat and a copy, with your permission, Right Honourable, to the Speaker.
Thank you. Please.
Right Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Madam. Right Honourable Speaker. Again, I will go through only the salient issues. Observations relating to financial statements, that is page 5 of the report. There is a financial analysis provided by the Auditor General on analysis and assessment of the company's performance. The Auditor General carried out the analysis of financial information of the company's accounts and summarized the same in Table A, which appears from page 5 through to page 7. The accounting office explained that the current strategy ended in June 2025, and management is in the process of developing a new 10-year strategy. The new strategy is hinged on the following pillars: financial sustainability, operational efficiency, learning and development, and stakeholder engagement. The corresponding initiatives are geared towards revenue enhancement and better cost control. Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, this relates to the following key components. When you read page 5, you'll find that the airline company incurred a net loss for the financial year 23-24 of 22-23 of 323.598 billion. The same reduced in 23-24 to 237.855 billion. Right Honourable Speaker, from 21-22, the loss was at 265.909 billion. The company therefore incurred significant losses for the year under audit. The net loss of for the year 24 reduced compared to that of 2023, signifying a reduction of 26.5 loss reduction. This is a positive indication of cost management and revenue improvements. Management should sustain such efforts to improve the revenue and reduce operational inefficiencies. Sustained losses may erode stakeholder value and reduce the ability to sustain operations without external funding. The dividends are reported at 0. Operating margin is reported for the year 23-24 at 67.17. For the year 2023 at negative 138.17. The return on assets for the year 2023-24 is reported at negative 21.92, and the current ratio of 1.42 times. Debt ratio of 20.09%. Right Honourable Speaker, the interest cover is negative 96.71, and the average debtors collection period is 51.86 days. The accounting office explained the strategy, and we made observations. The financial performance of the Uganda National Airline Company Limited in 2024 shows signs of improvement in terms of reduced net loss, better operating margin, and enhanced liquidity. However, attention is needed in managing debt collections and maintaining interest cover. Uganda National Airline Company Limited is not performing well in terms of profitability and its ability to sustain the provision of services. Sustained financial loss, negative returns on assets, and rising debt collection periods threaten the company's financial health and operational capacity. The entity was in the process of developing a new strategy, it was reported. We recommend that the accounting office of the airline company should fast track the implementation of the detailed company strategy. Emphasis should be placed on cost control, revenue enhancement, efficient asset utilization, and improved working capital management to support sustainable operations. Management should prioritize cost control, enhance revenue generation, and focus on asset utilization to achieve financial sustainability and reduce reliance on government funding. Contingent liability. Note 2I to J of the financial statements disclosed contingent liabilities totaling to Uganda shillings 11.94 billion, which is USD 3,155,715 as of June 30th, 2024, primarily related to pending court cases concerning contract terminations, unpaid works, negligence claims, and loss of baggage. The accounting office explained that the contingent liability disclosed relates to pending court cases. Observations. With such a huge sum of unsettled contingent liability, the company could face significant legal costs, including fees, gun-show orders, and settlement, further straining the financial resources in addition to reputational damage. The company operates direct flights in all its routes. Such should minimize or eliminate cases of lost baggage, which can only be attributed to negligence of the staff. Recommendation. Accounting officer of the airline company should always seek legal guidance from the Solicitor General, in addition to making good use of the legal department before terminating contracts to minimize the risk of such disputes. Urgent measures should be taken to settle the outstanding obligations to mitigate further financial and reputational risks. The company should establish measures to deal with negligent staff who expose the company to astronomical liability. Contract award on general sales agency agreements without guarantees. Right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the general condition of contract GCC 25.1 of the standardized general sales agents agreements require general sales agents to provide advance payment guarantee to protect the Uganda National Airlines Company Limited from financial risks. Such a default or delays in remittances, such as defaults or delays in remittances. However, a review of the GSA agreement of financial year 2023 to 2024 revealed significant non-compliances, including the following. 1. Certain agents were awarded agreements without being required to provide guarantees, leaving the airline company exposed to potential credit risk. For example, one agent had an outstanding balance of USD 158,876, which is Uganda shillings 588.788 million as of June 2024 without guarantees in place. Other agents had guarantee requirements in their agreements, but there was no evidence of payment for these guarantees. Some agents were not required to provide guarantees, contrary to the standard practices. The accounting office explained that management has reviewed the template for the agreements with the general sales agents and the compliance with the clauses of the agreements will now be overseen by the Chief Commercial Officer. Observation. The committee observes that lack of guarantees exposes the company to the risk of non-payment or delayed payments by agents, especially in the event of default. In addition, inconsistent application of guarantee requirements creates an unequal playing field among GSAs and undermines the integrity of the company's governance framework. It may also be a recipe for collusion and conspiracy. Recommendation: 1. Ensure all GSA agreements require bank guarantees as stipulated in the general conditions of contract. Agents failing to provide guarantees should not be awarded contracts. Take immediate steps to recover the outstanding balance of $158,876 from agents that owe the airlines and enforce stricter controls on payment timelines. Establish a dedicated team or person to monitor compliance with GSA agreements, including verifying the receipt of guarantees before contract execution. 4. Apply guarantee requirements uniformly to all GSAs to ensure fairness and accountability. 5. The company should develop a well-streamlined debt recovery plan in its financial manual. Business transactions with GSAs on expired contracts. The Auditor General observed that paragraph 12.5d of the Uganda National Airlines Process and Procedures Manual 2020 requires valid contracts with general sales agencies to govern passenger ticket sales. However, a review of contracts revealed that some GSAs continue to transact with the company after their contracts had expired, leading to a total sales of USD 378,143.34, which is 1.43 billion by 30th June 2024. The sum of USD 708,692 or Uganda shillings 2.68 billion remained outstanding as of 30th June 2024. The accounting officer noted that this anomaly, the need to immediately review the process and tracking the expiration and the renewal of GSA contracts. The accounting officer further explained that the enforcement of claims shall be carried out on a case-by-case basis. Committee observes that transacting with GSAs on expired contracts exposes the company to disputes over unenforceable contract terms. In addition, outstanding balances from GSAs may be contested, potentially leading to non-recovery or additional legal costs. There is no standard policy on procurement of GSAs, while some others are required to provide guarantees, others are not. We recommend: 1. The accounting officer of the airline company should implement robust systems to track contract expiration dates and ensure timely renewals or terminations. 2. Accounting officer should develop a structured approach to recover outstanding balances from GSAs, including legal enforcement if necessary. 3. Management should develop a standard policy on procurement of GSAs to avoid arbitrariness in contracting. Observations on compliance with the relevant regulatory framework. Delayed contract execution. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, Regulation 9.1 of the PPDA Regulations Contract 2023 states that a contract shall identify the obligations of each party, correlate all payments by procuring and disposing entity with the corresponding inputs and obligations or deliverables by a provider in a specific identifiable and measurable manner where required, provide effective supervision arrangements, where required, provide adequate monitoring and cost control measures, where required, include adequate and clear delivery, acceptance and handover commissioning arrangements, among others. Additionally, Regulation 52.1 of the PPDA Regulations Contract 2023 states that a contract manager shall A. manage the obligations and duties of procuring and disposing entities specified in the contract, and B. make certain that the provider performs the contract under the terms and conditions specified in the contract. However, contracts worth 7.42 billion experienced delays in execution with no corrective actions taken by the accounting officer. Key issues included absence of contract management plans or reports. 2. Delayed deliveries without follow-ups or enforcement of contract terms. Refer to Table 2 at page Table 2 at page 12 through to 13. We observe that there are no standard streamlined contract execution and tracking mechanisms aligned with specific deliverables, which poses a risk for the breach of contract or funds. Delays in contract execution disrupt operations and service delivery. We recommend that the accounting office of the airline company should ensure every contract has a detailed management plan outlining timelines, monitoring and tracking mechanisms, and deliverables. The accounting officer should address delays proactively by renegotiating terms, enforcing penalties, and seeking alternative solutions to ensure timely delivery. Non-compliance with contract monitoring and reporting requirements. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, Section 52.3 F and G of the PPDA Contracts Regulations 2023 requires contract managers to appraise provider performance and submit monthly progress reports to the Procurement and Disposal Unit, PDU, and the accounting officer. Furthermore, the PDU must submit quarterly reports on all contracts to the accounting officer, highlighting challenges encountered in managing contracts. However, a review of the contracts totaling to 4.075 billion revealed non-compliance, and no performance appraisal reports or monthly progress reports were submitted by the contract managers or the PDU to the accounting officer. The accounting office explained that contract management plans and reports have been submitted for verification. However, contrary to management's response, reports for 4 contracts totaling 4.075 billion were not availed for audit review. During the interface with the committee, the accounting officer confirmed availability and indeed presented the contract management document for the procurement as well as monitoring reports. We observe, without regular monitoring, performance issues cannot be identified and addressed proactively, leading to delays or substandard outcomes. The relevant committee documents and reports were not submitted to the Auditor General during the audit, but were only availed to the committee during interface.
The relevant contract documents, not committee.
Oh, pardon me. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Yes. The accounting officer should ensure that contract managers and PDU submit regular performance appraisals and progress reports. This will allow for better oversight, timely intervention, and improved contract execution. The accounting officer should submit the relevant contract documents and reports to the Auditor General. In accordance with observation on performance evaluation, in accordance with Schedule 2 of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 171 of the presentation of financial statements, and Section 18 of the National Audit Act, Cap 170, the Auditor General undertook an evaluation of the authority's actual performance in comparison with its planned activities and outputs for the year, as well as its mandate. The section presents the findings from the evaluation of the performance. Review of implemented entities mandate, Right Honourable Speaker, is reproduced in Table 3, which appears from page 15 through to page 16. The accounting office in response explained that management is actively engaging stakeholders in the airline resource mobilization drive, including submitting cabinet proposal for acquiring additional aircrafts, engaging development financial institutions for patient capital, and implementing internal revenue enhancement and cost management strategies. Additionally, operational departments have been assigned specific revenue targets to achieve in financial year 2025. During interface with the committee, the accounting officer stated that the company is not likely to realize its return on investment given the lifetime of the aircraft. The lifespan of the CRJs is approximately 10 years, implying that they are left with 5 years of effective functioning since most of them were acquired during the same time, causing the risk of impairment within the same time frame. Further, the committee was informed that the company from which the aircrafts were procured has since been sold to Mitsubishi, and the process of procuring spare parts is cumbersome, leaving the company at the mercy of speculators in the market. The committee observes as follows. 1. The limited execution of planned actions has restricted the route expansion, fleet growth, and customer engagement initiatives. 2. Following the closure of the company manufacturing the CRJs, the manufacturing and acquisition of some of the essential spare parts has become cumbersome, leaving the company at the risk of market speculators. It is apparent that the team that did the feasibility study did not adequately address their minds to these possibilities, thereby impairing the ability of the company to realize the return on investment. 3. That the airline is an intricate industry that calls for heavy capital investment, expert-driven human resource management, well-motivated staff, and adequate preparation and benchmarking. Good practices would give proper direction to the board and management through sufficient comparative studies. 4. Management did not consider cheaper but effective alternatives in the acquisition of the aircrafts. 5. Aviation, the option of leasing is a modern way of fleet management that avoids heavy initial investments as well as minimizing maintenance costs. The option to lease, to freeze capital for the other essential, right honorable speaker, it is to free capital for other essential needs like route expansion, marketing, staff motivation, as well as fuel purchase. It allows flexibility in fleet sizing, depending on demand and seasonal peaks and downturns. It helps the phasing out of older aircrafts and adoption of new technology-driven products. It allows the company to maintain some cash flow that may attend to emerging needs and demands. 6. Had the task force considered these options, the company would have acquired more and better technology-driven aircrafts. Recommendations. The committee recommends that the accounting officer should, 1, ensure all core mandates are reflected in the strategic and annual work plans and allocate appropriate resources for their implementation. 2, accelerate engagements with the stakeholders and explore alternative funding sources to address the resource gaps. 3, government should increase funds to enhance operations and revenue for the Uganda National Airline Company Limited. 4, Uganda National Airline Company Limited management should ensure continuous motivation of staff through trainings to enhance skills and knowledge. 5, the company management should consider undertaking benchmarking visits for learning and sufficient comparative studies on management of aircrafts. 6, the minister should cause a review of the management, administrative, and staff structure to ensure that the team is up to the task in terms of training, expertise, and experience so as to meet the international competitive and comparative standards. Review of the implementation of the approved budget. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members.
Chair, just a minute. In the public gallery, we have students, pupils and teachers of ABC Primary School located in Pade District. They are represented by Honorable Komakech Christoph and Honorable Chiro Pascamenya. You're most welcome. Thank you so much for coming. You can see your member of parliament is there, very attentive. So you should tell those people to bring him back. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Honourable Speaker, the review of the implementation of the approved budget is represented at pages 18, 19, through to page 20. The accounting officer responded that management is taking a medium to long-term approaches to its revenue mobilization strategy. This approach entails optimizing Entebbe as a hub where traffic feeds and de-feeds into the larger network, increasing the aircraft utilization rates by opening additional routes where CRJ fleet can be utilized, and moving towards daily operations on all routes across the network. The committee observes that failure to realize funds for the activities that were budgeted negatively affected the implementation and achievement of the expected services. We recommend that the accounting office of the airline company should expedite the implementation of the revenue mobilization strategy to minimize shortfalls and ensure all planned activities are adequately funded. 2, government should provide adequate funding for the activities of the national airline company to boost its revenue and minimize shortfalls. 3, the national airline company should consider the leasing option, which will increase the fleet at minimum cost. The airline should consider partnerships and alliances with other reputable airline companies across the globe to increase its visibility and competitiveness within the industry. Unimplemented or unplanned activities. Implementation of planned activities, pardon me. The Auditor General assessed the extent of implementation of planned activities for which funds were realized. A total of 19 outputs with 53 activities worth 456.28 billion were assessed, and the following were observed. 5 outputs with 5 activities and expenditures worth 269.8 billion were fully implemented. 5 outputs with 26 activities worth 96.6 billion were partially implemented. Out of 26, the entity fully implemented 6 activities with 1.784 billion. 7 activities worth 91.4 billion were partially implemented, while 12 activities worth 3.4 billion remained unimplemented. 9 outputs with 22 activities worth 89.88 billion were not implemented at all. Examples of the activities that were partially implemented are reproduced in Table 7 below, that is page 21. The accounting office explained that management is taking a medium to long-term approach to its revenue mobilization strategy. This approach entails optimizing Entebbe as a hub where traffic feeds and de-feeds into the larger network, increasing aircraft utilization rates by operating additional routes where CRJ aircrafts or fleet can be utilized, and moving towards daily operations. Observation: the activities under Table 7 include activities for which monies were provided but were partially implemented with the corresponding figures whose use and accountability were not provided by the accounting officer. 2, money to the tune of 88,714,747,923 was allocated. Activities implemented were worth 43,375,807,211, leaving a sum of 45,333,940,712 unexplained. Failure to execute planned activities undermined the company's ability to meet strategic goals, reducing operational efficiency and effectiveness. Recommendation: value for money audit should be undertaken by the Auditor General and a report provided to Parliament within 6 months. 2, accounting officer should engage stakeholders to secure the necessary funding for priority activities and explore alternative financing mechanisms to address funding gaps. 3, adopt realistic budgeting and enhance planning for activities by ensuring alignment between resources, timelines, and expected outcomes. observations on audit findings from other audit engagements, forensic investigations on audit of the training costs for the initial cabinet crew trainings made by the Uganda National Airline Company Limited. In a letter dated 8th August 2022, under that reference, the Inspector General of Government, IGG, requested the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit on the financial transactions in the 2 initial cabin crew trainings made by Uganda National Airline Company Limited, and to establish whether there was a financial loss suffered by the National Airline Company Limited. Pursuant to Article 163 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995 as amended, the National Audit Act, Cap 170, the Auditor General instituted a forensic audit into the financial transactions regarding the training undertaken by the Uganda National Airline Company Limited in the financial year 2020, 2021, and 2021 and 2022. Excuse me. The overall objective of the forensic investigation was to establish whether the company suffered a financial loss, and if so, establish the amount of the financial loss suffered in conducting the 2 initial cabin crew trainings and the culpable individuals. The following are key findings. In the period 3rd to 30th December 2020, when the Uganda National Airline Company Limited organized an initial cabin crew training for 40 cabin crew members to fulfill regulatory requirements for licensing, the company had a detailed comprehensive airline cabin crew training manual. The review revealed the following. 1. The manual provided specific guidelines and procedures on how cabin crew training should be conducted. It outlined the fundamental initial cabin crew courses, the training modes for each course or module, and ensured compliance with Uganda's Civil Aviation Authority regulations governing air operator certificate holders. The manual developed by the company was reviewed and approved by the UCAA in 2019 to ensure that all training activities met the highest regulatory standards and contribute to the effective preparation and licensing of cabin crew. Assessment of the extent to which the cabin crew trainings met the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority standards and the Uganda National Airline Company Limited cabin crew training manual requirements. It was established that the training programs were implemented by training. It was established by training companies for the 40 cabin crew members. The following were the key findings noted. Phase 1 of the initial cabin crew training of 40 cabin crew members was conducted, and the course or training content covered included safety management systems, aviation security, transport of dangerous goods by air, and crew resource management. The training program was not approved by UCAA before training was conducted by the training company, contrary to the guidelines. The training exceeded the 20 attendee threshold without obtaining necessary UCAA approvals, and the training venue was not approved by Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. And the training on dangerous goods was conducted for 3 hours instead of the required 7 hours. The Uganda Civil Aviation Authority rejected the training provided by the training company because Uganda National Airline Company failed to demonstrate that all the mandatory training areas were thoroughly covered. Phase 2 of the initial training of 40 cabin crew members conducted from May to July 2021 for USD 360,400, which phase, 36,400, thank you, which phase included safety emergency procedures, training, ditching drill, and CRJ 900 and 330 to 80, A330 to 800 conversion courses, was found to be compliant with UCAA standards and UNACL cabin crew training manual requirements. The total cost incurred in the initial and supplementary trainings amounted to USD 148,400. The Auditor General noted, and I quote, based on the observations in relation to which the training programs were implemented, there is no sufficient and appropriate evidence to consider the initial training costs of USD 148,400 constituted a financial loss. The committee observes as follows. In deciding whether there was financial loss or not, the committee is guided by the objective of both the training and the forensic audit. The following questions are relevant. 1. Whether the training complied with the regulatory framework and the standard of the regulator. B. Whether the training program was approved by Uganda Civil Aviation Authority in accordance with the guidelines. C. What is the effect of exceeding the 20 attendee threshold without obtaining the necessary UCAE approval on quality of the training? D. What is the effect of training at a venue not approved by UCAA? What is the effect of training for 3 hours instead of the required 7 hours? F. What is the effect of the failure to train in all the mandatory training areas? G. What is the effect of the UCAA's rejection of the entire training? That is phase 1. In effect, the effect of the above is that the training did not meet the standards and did not meet the objectives, did not meet the regulatory requirements, and was not training at all, thereby causing a financial loss of the entire amount. Recommendations. The committee recommends that the accounting officer should A. All the amounts spent on training for the 40-member crew team in respect of phase 1, which did not meet the standard and rejected by UCAA, should be treated as a financial loss.
Wouldn't it be better for you to say that all the amount spent on the purported training, because you've already answered up saying that there was no training?
I'm gratified by that fortification, Right Honourable Speaker. The persons responsible for the organizing the training should be investigated by the Inspectorate of Government with a view to prosecuting any possible culprit. Those that will be found culpable should refund the money. Ensure that all training programs are reviewed and approved by UCAA prior to implementation. Adherence to UCAA guidelines, including approval of training venues, course content, and participant threshold, should be strictly enforced to avoid regulatory rejections. Establish robust internal mechanisms to verify that all mandatory training areas and content align with UCAA requirements before engaging training providers. This will help prevent deficiencies that could lead to regulatory non-compliance. Reduce costs and duplication by consolidating training phases and aligning timelines with annual refresher training schedules. This approach would optimize resources and improve efficiency. Implement a process to evaluate training programs upon completion to ensure that all regulatory standards have been met and to identify areas of improvement. Having reviewed the audited accounts of the Uganda National Airline Company Limited for the year under review, the committee is cognizant of the struggles the airline has faced from the time of its revamp a few years ago and the prospect of a bright future. If the areas of improvement identified can indeed be addressed, we therefore ask the House to adopt this report with its recommendations. I beg to move.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Right Honourable Speaker.
And Clerk, you need to extract all these recommendations and refer it to IGG.
Right Honourable Speaker, permit me now to present the report of the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company for the audit year ended December 2024, with a copy of the original submitted or laid on table. A copy to you, Right Honourable Speaker, and with your permission, I would like to start. Right Honourable Speaker, at page 2 of the report, the Auditor General, we make observations on the audit queries. The first, under 3.1.2, being long-standing receivables, amounting to a total of 889.59 billion. Accounting Office explained that these relate to amount withheld by UMEME on account of non-payment of power bills by MDS. The schedule of MDS in question is enclosed in Annex 1, attached, and the letter requesting for direct recovery by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development from the MDA is enclosed and annexed as 2. The company continues to engage, will continue to engage various distributors in an effort to enhance collection. The balance of the money relates to debit notes and late payment interest invoices, and bulk has been settled after closure, save for a few which were disputed, and investigations are ongoing between UETCL and UMEME to have the issue resolved. Section 5.3D of the agreement allows UMEME to offset against UETCL revenues in case government entities fail to pay their bills. The Ministry of Finance requested UMEME to settle the withheld amount with UETCL. However, UMEME insists that the amount is still due from Government of Uganda entities as per the attached list of MDS with arrears. UETCL continues to engage UMEME and government through Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and Ministry of Finance and Finance Planning and Economic Development to have this matter resolved and the amount refunded. Accordingly, management wrote to the Ministry of Finance to offset this amount from defaulting MDS and remit funds directly to UETCL. Letters of engagement with UMEME and Ministry of Energy are enclosed as Annex 3. The balance of 22.79 billion related to debit notes and late payment interest invoices, which have since been settled by UMEME. A copy of the letter from ERA to the Ministry referencing outstanding amount is enclosed as Annex 4. UETCL received an arbitration award in its favor in April 2024 for the payment by Falsalt of Uganda shillings 40 billion. UETCL filed its bill of costs for arbitration, and the taxation award was delivered in March 2025. A copy of the arbitration award is also attached as Annex 5. UETCL has filed an application for enforcement of its award as a decree of court and is awaiting a court date for the hearing of the application. Upon obtaining the leave of the court to enforce the award, UETCL shall commence execution proceedings for recovery of outstanding amounts. A copy of the application attached as Annex 6. This relates to the amount withheld by UETCL on account of their claim for the losses incurred in their network as a result of evacuation of energy from the small embedded generation plants, which was disputed by UETCL, and the matter is before the regulator for review and determination. A letter is annexed as 7. The long-term solution is a wheeling agreement between UEDCL and UETCL, which will provide modalities for compensation of UEDCL for such losses. Draft agreement with UEDCL was finalized and submitted to ERA for approval, and a copy is enclosed as Annex 8. Licenses were not renewed by ERA. However, the PSA provides that obligations incurred prior to termination survive termination. 6 billion Uganda shillings relates to BEX and RARE requested UETCL for colleagues BEX's Bundibujo Energy Cooperative Society, and RARE requested UETCL to disconnect BEX, not to disconnect BEX, and committed to pay the amount Bundibujo Energy Cooperative Society owed UETCL. The amount to be offset against REA levy payable to REA Ministry of Energy. Evidence of the correspondence is attached. 2.17 relates to claims of losses incurred by Chirembe Investments Limited KIL in the process of evacuating power from the small generation plant within KIL area of operation. UETCL referred this matter to ERA for determination. ERA provided compensation for evacuation losses going forward, however, did not compensate the earlier losses incurred. KIL appealed, however, their license expired before the appeal was determined by ERA. UETCL wrote to ERA to compensate UETCL with Uganda shillings 2.85 billion relating to Padela Beam Community Malt Electric Cooperative Society, PACMEX, and the reason given by client was non-payment of power bills by government entities, as well as delay by REA to refund their reimbursement costs. UETCL wrote to REA demanding that the amount payable is remitted directly to UETCL. This amount was offset against rural electrification levy payable to REA Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Energy. Copies of the correspondence between UETCL and PACMEX and REA are enclosed. Management continues to engage government through Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Finance to have this amount reimbursed by Government of Uganda written off. And the interim, the amount has been attached against the rural electrification levy payable to government. Observations of the committee. Failure by UETCL to collect the outstanding receivables reflects a laxity on the side of the company management. Considering that determination of Umeme concession was foreseeable and known to UETCL, there was no strong buffer, fallback position to enable UETCL recover the monies owed by Umeme contract to the company's debt management policy. 2. Despite Umeme being paid off by government, it did not settle its obligations. Currently, it is uncertain how UETCL will recover over Uganda shillings 500 billion from Umeme, seeing that they have exited the service. In 2022, a cabinet decision was taken to terminate Umeme contract following a resolution of Parliament. However, no concrete steps were taken to assertively take over the infrastructure, property, and assets Umeme had taken over and used to claim a buyout, thereby shrinking the likelihood of recovery of the money owed. This property and assets would have had value to offset the debt owed by Umeme to UETCL. The long outstanding receivables may become bad debts leading to potential write-offs and losses to the company. The pending court case negatively impacts service delivery, and protracted disputes become costly in the long run. The long time taken by ERA to resolve disputes as a regulator impacts negatively on the company achieving its targets. We recommend the accounting officer should institute mechanisms that ensure timely recovery of the outstanding receivables in accordance with the company's debt management policy to minimize potential losses. UETCL should explore expeditious ways of settling court cases, including out-of-court settlement, to avoid protracted disputes that become costly in the long run. Long outstanding payables. The Auditor established that included in the payables balance of Uganda shillings 750.91 billion reported under Note 30 is a balance of Uganda shillings 132.12 billion due to Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, which has been outstanding for over 2 financial years. The payables resulted from rural electrification levy charges on local energy purchases that occurred before the amendment of the Electricity Act. While interfacing with the committee, the accounting officer further explained that management is aware of the outstanding obligation. However, the delayed settlement was majorly due to financial constraints imposed to UETCL as a result of certain commitments from Government of Uganda. This has been brought to the attention of the Government of Uganda through several letters the latest being a letter dated 13th May 2022, in which UETCL responded to a letter from Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development dated 14th February and provided clarification on the accumulated outstanding 5% rural electrification levy via letter dated 13th May 22. In the quoted letter, UETCL clarified that Uganda shillings 103 billion had been offset from the amount payable to the own account of the rural electrification levy, pending settlement of the following obligations by government. One, first, during the energy crisis of 2011, with concurrence of government, UETCL applied part of the collected 5% levy funds towards the settlement of power bills, so that once the government reimburses UETCL, the same would be remitted to REA, 33 billion. Uganda government has not availed the above fund to UETCL. 2. Umeme claims government entities owe them over 64.779 billion on account of non-payment of their bills. Due to this, Umeme Limited, in accordance with Section 53D of the Power Sale Agreement, PSA, withheld and paid itself 64.779 billion against UETCL invoice for delivered supplied energy. This was done after giving due notice to the government, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. As an interim measure, UETCL offset this amount from the rural electrification levy collected through the tariff and payable to REA Ministry of Energy, and used the same to pay generators to avert possible power crisis. An amount of 6 billion was offset on account of the BEC's outstanding amount. This follows REA's request of UETCL to stay disconnection of power supply to BEC's and committing to pay all the outstanding monies that the cooperative owed UETCL. An amount of Uganda shillings 33 billion paid to power generators during the power crisis of 2011 and 15.6 billion pension arrears was paid to former UEB employees and their lawyers. UETCL will continue to engage government agencies to have all the withheld funds paid to enable UETCL meet this obligation. And finally, all above have been brought to the attention of the government of Uganda through several correspondences. UETCL will continue to engage the government agencies to have all the withheld funds paid to enable the company meet its obligations. We observe that the failure to set outstanding obligations affects UETCL and the ministry in their obligation to implement rural electrification program. We recommend that the accounting officer continues engaging the relevant stakeholders to ensure settlement of long outstanding payables as prioritized. Recognition of revenue from power sales. Right Honorable Speaker, the Auditor General noted that UETCL previously recognized the revenue in full at the point of power sales without taking into consideration the fact that revenue is recognized at the performance of obligation, as the performance of the obligation is fulfilled. The Auditor General further noted that there have been insufficient disclosures in relation to the deferred revenues. IFRS 15.11 requires that the company discloses sufficient information to enable the users understand the nature, amount, timing, and uncertainty of revenue arising from the contracts with the customers. However, the company did not disclose the following: revenue recognized in the year that was included in the deferred liability balance at the beginning of the year. 2, performance obligations satisfied, partially satisfied, and unsatisfied as at the year end. Payments made during the year for which no performance obligation has been fulfilled, i.e. WIP, and the timing of the satisfaction of the performance obligation and the amount allocated to the performance obligations. The committee observes that insufficient disclosures affect the user's understanding of the financial statements. Following the Auditor General's recommendation, an adjustment for the 22 billion was made, as well as a disclosure and this is depicted at the face of the statement of financial position under the non-current liabilities. We recommend that the accounting officer should enhance the subsequent disclosures to include information as required by IFRS 15 and enable traceability of the future investment plans. As a standard practice, reconciliations and adjustments of the financial statements should be done before the audit exit meeting, or else they be subjected to fresh audit. Observations on compliance with relevant regulatory framework. Procurement, unimplemented procurement, Right Honourable Speaker, represented from pages 9 to 10, and the committee observes that the failure to fully implement or plan the procurement delays services for which the procurement of work, services, or goods were intended. We recommend that the accounting officer should ensure planned procurements are executed in a timely manner and unimplemented procurements be rolled over to the following period. Is low bidder participation. In accordance with Section 46 of the PPDA, Cap 205, all public procurement should be conducted in a manner that maximizes competition and achieves value for money. The Auditor General analyzed the bidders' participation by comparing the number of invited bidders with the corresponding numbers of participants, and noted that there was a low bidder turn-up for up to 11 procurements worth 5.44 billion. Accounting Office explained that most of the services and supplies required by UETCL are highly specialized, rendering the supply market limited. However, the company will continue to make use of competitive methods in accordance with the PPDA threshold. Further, the low bidder participation can be attributed to unacknowledged bid invitations, unclear instructions to bidders, and impractical requirements which affects the bidder's ability to respond and comply. The committee observes that low bidder turn-up limits effective competition and defeats the motive of enhanced competition to achieve value for money. We recommend that the accounting officer should investigate and address the causes of low bidder turn-up so as to maximize competition in accordance with the basic principles of procurement. We noted delayed procurement of consultancy services and observed that inadequate funds affect timely execution of the planned activities as well as service delivery. It also depicts lack of adequate planning on the part of the agency or entity. Accounting officer recommendation should improve on planning and budgeting to ensure timely execution of the planned activities. Government should increase its funding to the agency to be able to execute its mandate. Completion of the pending 34.7 kilometer Toro Lira 132 kV transmission line. Audit established that the company awarded a contract on 13th December 2023 to MS Kalapataru Projects International Limited to complete the pending works of 34.7 kilometers 132 kV transmission line of Toro Lira at a contract price of $5,359,246 and Uganda shillings 8.22 billion under procurement reference number UETCL Works 2022-23/01061. On review of the procurement file, the Auditor General noted the following anomalies. Contrary to Regulation 37 of the PPDA Rules and Methods 2014, the statement of requirements and the bill of quantities for the procurement were inadequate. The bills eliminated items such as mobilization, demobilization, soil investigations due to changes in the corridor, site security, deployment, and reassembling of some towers. As a result of amending the bills of quantities, BOQs, the contract price was adjusted by USD 289,243.87 and Uganda shillings 0.71 billion. The procurement was initiated on 31st January 2023. However, the bid invitation was sent out on 24th May 2023, 4 months later, which indicates inefficiencies in the procurement processes. The accounting officer explained that since the contract was for completion of the work that had been ongoing, the user department at the time of procurement initiation had not envisaged need for these items in the BOQ, but was established during pre-award negotiations as justification for price increase by Kalpataru. Going forward, management will ensure that user departments conduct adequate technical needs assessment in order to prepare a sufficient statement of requirements to avoid such cost changes. We observe the user department did not do adequate needs assessment, and entity did not add sufficient supervision of the project in the respective phases. Inadequate needs assessment and incomplete BOQs result into increased project cost. The delays in the procurement process affects contract implementation. Recommendation: the accounting officer should ensure that technical teams and user departments support procurement requirements with proper needs assessments and accurate BOQs. The accounting officer should ensure that all staff are adequately trained and skilled to be brought to the required standards of their respective departments. A value for money audit should be undertaken by Auditor General in respect of the entire project to ascertain whether the work done was commensurate with the funds expended. Report on performance evaluation. We do an assessment of the company's financial performance, the operating margin, Right Honourable Speaker, and observe at page 16 that a fall in the operating margin below the desired level of 15% signifies a decline in profitability. Indeed, the decline posted, for example, in profitability is in forex exchange is 10.8 billion, a sharp and radical departure from the previous year's exchange rate gain of 60.1 billion. The committee does not treat this as innocent. The committee recommends that the Auditor General should undertake a special audit in this aspect, and report to Parliament within 6 months. Profit for the year part. Right Honourable Speaker, a consistent increase in part signifies financial health and sustainable operations, which indicates effective revenue generation, cost management, and operational efficiency. This enables the company to reinvest in infrastructure, technology, and innovation that can lead to improved efficiency, enhanced service reliability, as well as reduced operational costs over time. The company's PAT decreased by 13.36% from 94.9 billion in 2022-23 to 82.25 billion reported in 23-24, suggesting reduced profitability. The reduced profitability is majorly attributable to the portion of the energy sales revenue that have been deferred to exclude revenue for the future investments within the tariff, whose performance obligation has not been achieved. The accounting office explained that the company continues to implement policies and actions that ensure sustainable and consistent profitable position of the company accordingly. We observe that reduced profitability points towards unsustainable operations of the company in the medium, long term, unless UETCL adopts policies or actions that could reverse this trend. Accounting officer provided no detail on the measures put in place to improve the profitability position of the company. Recommendation that the accounting officer should implement policies that ensure sustainability and consistent profitability of the company. Return on investments. The Auditor General noted that although the company's return on investment increased from 1.70 in the previous year to 1.89% of the current year, which suggests a slight improvement. The return is still way below the desired 5%. This indicates a suboptimal utilization of the company's assets to generate income. The accounting office explained that the company continues to fast-track projects to completion with a view to generating revenue and increasing its return on assets. We observed that the inability of the company to generate revenue and therefore low turn on assets is attributable to the fact that over 60% of the company's assets are still work in progress. We recommend that the accounting officer should fast-track the completion of the projects under the work in progress to enhance revenue collection or generation. Liquidity assets. Liquidity ratio measures a company's ability to meet short-term financial obligations using current assets. A quick ratio between 1 and 1.5 is generally considered healthy. The Auditor General noted that the company had a quick ratio of 2.17 for the year under review, which is well within the desirable range. The Auditor General further noted that the quick ratio increased by 0.15 from the last year's ratio of 2.02, which suggests improved liquidity. The healthy liquidity position is majorly attributable to the operational funds from energy sales of 508 billion. Government of Uganda's contribution to PAP implementation and project implementation of 236 billion. Accounting Office explained that the above funds are not excess in nature, however, tagged and committed to the several disbursement activities pending conclusion of the relevant processes under the way, like procurement, RAP processes, fixed funds on bank accounts for treasury management purposes. The committee observes, agrees with the Auditor General's observation that although the ratio suggests a low quick liquidity risk, excessive liquidity may indicate that the company is not optimally investing funds for grid service improvement. We recommend that the accounting officer should fast-track the implementation of the activities attributable to the committed funds, and that excess funds are invested in relevant infrastructure projects to improve grid services. The debt ratio analysis. Debt ratio assesses a proposition of a company's assets financed by debt and is a critical indicator of its financial stability. A debt ratio exceeding 50% is generally deemed undesirable. The Auditor General established that the company's debt ratio as at 30th June 2024 was 55%, which is higher than the desired 50%, indicating that the significant portion of the company's assets is financed by debt. The Auditor General noted that the undesirable ratio is attributed to the on-lent loans for the International Development Agency, IDA, Exim Bank of China, African Development Bank, ADB, and the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA. The auditor further noted that although the company indicates that government has no intention to recover the loans in the foreseeable future, the ratio implies a high financial risk that may hinder the company's access to the future loans. Accounting Office explained that the company has engaged the government of Uganda on the matter of conversion of debt to grants and will continue to follow up on the same. The conversion will significantly improve the company's gearing ratio, since the loans would no longer be a component of the company's long-term debt. We make our observations and recommendations on page 20, and then move to payment of dividends, where we make our observations and recommendations at page 21. In the implementation of the entity's mandate and unachievable strategic targets. Right, Honorable Speaker, from page 21 to page 22, we make our findings, observations, and recommendations. And on the high rejection rate for the costs submitted to errors approval, our observations are found at page 24 and with recommendations at the same page. On the review of the implementation of approved budget, we make our observations at page 25 through to 26 with attendant recommendations. On underperformance of Government of Uganda disbursements, Right Honourable Speaker, we make observations at page 26 and recommendation at page 27. Operations and maintenance costs, we make our observations at page 28 and with attendant recommendations at the same page. Right Honourable Speaker, we make several observations from pages 29, from page 30 through to page 38. And by addressing the above stated challenges, the company could improve its financial and operational outlook to deliver the better services to its clients and stakeholders. With that, I beg to move that Parliament be pleased to adopt the recommendations. Right Honourable Speaker, the other report relates...
And Hansard captured the whole report?
Yes. Yes, the other observations and recommendations relate to the following entities: the Electoral Commission for the audit year ended December 2024, which I beg to lay on table.
Let's do.
The other relates, Right Honourable Speaker, to... Copy to the Speaker. Relates to the operations and the audit of financial statements of the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, which I beg to lay on table.
Please do.
The other, Right Honourable Speaker, relates to the Insurance Regulatory Authority for the audit year ended December 2024, which I beg to lay on table.
Please do.
The other one relates to the statements of Chirembe Mines Limited for the audit year ended December 2024. The other one, Right Honourable Speaker, relates to the statements of the New Vision Printing and Publishing Company Limited for the financial year ended 30th June 2024. I already laid this on table. Okay. In summary, Right Honourable Speaker, we have been able to provide the following: Uganda Revenue Authority Corporate Services, Uganda Revenue Authority Collection Accounts, Uganda Registration Services Bureau Operations, the New Vision Printing and Publishing Corporation, Kirembe Mines Limited, Electoral Commission, Uganda Electricity Transmission Company, the Insurance Regulatory Authority, and the Uganda National Airline Company. With that, Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members, we invite Parliament to find pleasure in adopting. We thank you, Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members, for patience. And finally, permit me to thank the members of the committee and our staff assigned to us for a job I believe well done, for some sleepless nights. Yes, the last days have been tense, with the tone going up at times, it was a work hazard. They should bear with me. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker,
Thank
and
you.
I beg to submit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the exhaustive reports. Honourable members, you've heard the reports that the chairperson has read out. Any comment? In the absence of a comment, I put a question that the reports of the Public Accounts Committee, Commission, statutory authorities, and state enterprises on annual reports of the Auditor General to Parliament for audit year ending 31st December 2024 with the entities, authorities that have been mentioned be adopted by this August House. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. Aye. The ayes have it. And as you've heard, the other authorities have not been, the reports are not ready. And as precedence has already been set, I now put a question that the House adopts the recommendations of the Auditor General on the entities that remain unconsidered by the Public Accounts Committee, COSASE, as contained in the annual report of the Auditor General to Parliament for audit year ended 31st December 2024. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. No. The ayes have it. Honourable members, we've considered all the reports and I have sent you more reports. I hope you find time in this critical time of campaign to consider them. I wish you could be considering whichever report that comes. You consider, you don't wait for all the reports. So those are the problems we have, especially at this time, but we want to thank you for these reports. Get time and read all these reports. And there are issues that border to criminality. I want to ask the clerk to extract them and have them forwarded, those reports to be forwarded, especially the one of the National Airline, forwarded to IGG for action. I want to thank all of you, members, who have endured to be in the House up to this time. And you know, God will always pay you back by coming back to the 12th Parliament. Yes. I now adjourn the House and dine.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
MTN